Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I'm your co-host, JP John Poz, for the two-man power trip. Of course, joining me, the financial wrestling genius himself, Mr. Lavie Margolin. Lavie, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, John. I know I've been saying this a lot recently, but it has been a special episode, a really special episode today. You know, when people talk about independent pro wrestling and buzzworthy promotions, it's so rare that a promotion really breaks out in so many ways. And Limitless Wrestling has really been an outlier, something that we've been watching for years, both from their YouTube to the buzz that they get on their promotion, to the talents that come out of there, to their summer show at the Coliseum. We've had the opportunity to talk Limitless and spotlight it a couple times on the show with Michael, the author of the Limitless books, but we're really excited to have as well today Randy Carver, the promoter and owner of Limitless Wrestling, join us. Welcome, Randy.
Randy, can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, now we can. Yep, there you go.
Beautiful. Sorry about that. I was just saying, Michael Labby's the one who tuned me into the podcast. I'm a huge fan now. I took a deep dive, probably went about 8 episodes deep, and then I just finished up the Violent J interview, which was crazy. I'm a huge fan, so just love what you guys are doing. I appreciate you guys having me on.
So what's the latest in the world of Limitless Wrestling? What's going on?
Well, we just wrapped up our 9-year anniversary show last weekend. The big booth of Desmond Cole defeating Channing Thomas for the championship, and moving forward kind of into a new chapter as we look ahead. We have our annual Fresh Blood event coming up October 26th in Yarmouth. It's kind of really kind of the tone setter for the year. Our year kind of flips in September, so this is a time where we get a lot of new talents, fresh faces kind of making their debut, and we're going to see who sticks really for the next year moving forward. But it's been an incredible year, truly our biggest yet, and numerous different categories, and we're hoping to finish it off strong.
What is going on with Dijak? Donovan Dijak obviously was a part of the show as well.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, I'm shocked that we're getting this opportunity, 7 years later to work with Donovan Dijak again. I think that he's one of the top names. I think not currently signed to a contract. I'm not sure what his status is right now, but at least in the intermediate, we're getting the chance to have him back involved with Limitless Wrestling again. And absolutely a must-see match with Jake Something this past weekend. The two tore it down. I think two of the best big men going today, but excited to see him back on the scene and just kind of, the chains are off. He's tearing it up and kind of doing his thing once again. And I think waking a lot of people up to what he's all about and what he can do, because he's one of the best wrestlers going absolutely right now, pound for pound. And he's getting a chance, to travel to different places. And I mean, the independent scene is so much different than when he was, really starting to flourish 7 years ago. And I think when he got signed, he was really just starting to pick up. He was going to PWG and he was starting to get flown overseas. And now coming back into the indie scene, he's able to jump right back into that and, go full force. So I'm excited for him and what, the next couple months of 2024 and what 2025 is going to bring.
How about Zilla Fatu? He's obviously a huge name going on right now. A lot of chatter about him and his potential. What about Zilla?
Yeah, dude, talk of the town lately, huh?
Yep.
I was, just about a day before we announced him. No, I'm wicked excited. I mean, it's something that had been in the works for a little while, and we finally got a date that lined up. His schedule is, has been crazy, honestly, for a rookie year. Exploding in GCW, of course, back at Reality of Wrestling, House of Glory, and making a pit stop here before the year is over in Limitless Wrestling. And I know a lot of our fans, they're very tuned in. You know what I mean? They know what's going on. For Maine being as detached as it is from the rest of the United States, people are plugged in, and I think very excited to be able to meet and see Zilla Fatu before things really pick up.
Now, as far as you're concerned, and kind of, obviously you're the promoter there. When did you kind of become a fan, and kind of when did you and how did you get into the business from becoming a fan?
Man, I was really by happenstance. I had a couple friends who were fans of it before I was, and I think it always takes like a defining moment, a defining clip. It was right around 2006, 2007. I remember the Shawn Michaels super kick to Shelton Benjamin as a that was, I don't know, just a tent pole for me really in my younger years, and I was like, wow, I think I could actually like this stuff and really enjoy it. And I dove in head first. I was lucky to have a Bull Moose Music around me, which is a like a used record and DVD shop where I was able to pick up like some early TNA DVDs for cheap, some Ring of Honor stuff, and then I just, after getting a live experience, I was able to catch a house show in 2007 and then attend my first independent wrestling event in 2008. And especially the indie show. I mean, being able to be front row and watching, granted, it's, looking back at it, I've actually got film of that first show in 2008 that I was at. It's, 70 people there, and it's a mom and pop kind of wrestling show, but it was just, it blew my mind that was possible. And that was, attainable to see 45 minutes from my house. So I just couldn't get away from it from there. That promotion locally ended up being called the IWE, Independent Wrestling Entertainment. And years later in 2013, I was able to, I had a couple people at that point that I was friendly enough with, and I wrote a letter to the promoter. And I just didn't really know how to break in at that time because there wasn't, a wrestling school. And I kind of figured that you had to train to be a wrestler to get into the business. So I started training for a couple months under the IWE, and then from there, just had some opportunities that fell into my lap to be able to do some interviewing work backstage. They needed a ring announcer, and then I just became the ring announcer after that, and then got the chance to travel around the state a little bit, around New England, thanks to some friends, and just kind of got my wheels moving and trying to understand and navigate as a young man in the business.
As far as like being in the business at such a young age and promoting at such a young age, that come as like a difficulty, or were you almost born and bred maybe to do this?
Definitely not. I mean, there was so much to learn along the way, and so many mistakes that we made, especially in the first couple of years. I mean, still to this day, it's you're learning every day, every show. There's always something to pick up. But it was we were very lucky at that time. We had guys who have kind of been with us from the start, like an Ace Romero, MSP, Aiden Agro, who's still wrestling today, Alexander Lee, our referee, Eric Greenleaf, who's been around from the start. We had like a core group of guys at that juncture in time, 2015, who, we did want to do something a little different, kind of bring a new flavor to the state that had continuously kind of had the same style of wrestling for many years. I mean, from the Savoldis doing ICW, NWA on Fire, that stint of IWE, there just wasn't much wrestling to begin with in the state of Maine, and it was all very much kind of presented the same. So just to do something a little different. And we didn't, at the start of this, we had no anticipation. We obviously wanted it to succeed and wanted it to continue going, but it could have flopped after one show, and we're just, all right, obviously this isn't something that's going to catch on right now. But there was a lot to learn. I mean, I was in the business about 2 years before deciding to do that first show. And I really, I still didn't really feel like we had a good grasp on things until a couple years ago. And even then, we'll feel like we have a good grasp, and then we'll have a show that we hate, But it's bumps along the road. But it's if we're continuously moving forward, I'm very happy about that.
Now, kind of just going back to Zilla, big plans for Zilla Fatu, because I feel like as far as a promoter, that's got to be something right on your mind, like, hey, what can we do with this guy? I mean, this is like a ball of clay here that has so much potential.
Definitely, and especially the response that it got. I think it's got a lot of people wondering. That could be a dream match situation like Donovan Dijak or a Jake something coming back. You know what I mean? Or it could be something major. For somebody that we have on our roster currently, like an Aiden Agro, Channing Thomas, even Desmond Cole. I would say within the next week or so, we're going to have a better insight to what that's going to be. But I think it's going to rock some people's worlds of what's going on with Zilla and maybe his future involvement in Limitless Wrestling, because I would say that it's probably not over with one shot here.
Now, let me hand it over to Lavie. I know Lavie's got a lot of questions.
All right. So, Randy, can you give us like a better sense of the Maine market? I enjoyed like the history of it. To me, I was of course going to drop some Savoldi questions, and we might still get there. But sort of like, how would you compare Maine as a market to others in, like, let's say New England, Northeastern area? Like, are there a lot of other promotions? Is there talent exchanges going on? What does it look like?
I think it's in a healthy state today. I would say more so than it's been in years past. A lot when I was breaking in 2013, it was very competitive. Promotions did not want to work together in any capacity. And there were, a lot of scenarios that you see, people complaining online about that they're not fair, but a lot of promoters would be like, hey, if you're working here, you're not working for me, or vice versa, and that was a lot of what it was at first. And they were, it was pretty cutthroat. People did not want people to succeed. There, people saying we're pulling posters down and all that jazz. And I would say today it's in a much better state where a lot of the promoters who are around right now are able to succeed with help of other promoters. And there's just, a common interest of putting on good shows rather than trying to, cut anybody's legs off who's promoting. But I mean, there was a history, and Michael Labby could attest because he's been attending shows much longer than I. There was, quite a history of shows that were either misadvertised or maybe canceled without any opportunity for refunds, or just, I experienced a lot when we were first getting our wheels moving, and even now sometimes in different towns, but buildings who want nothing to do with wrestling because they either, they weren't paid on the way out, or something was broken and there was no contact afterwards, or any of that stuff. That's just, it's messes that you have to clean up along the way. But there was a lot, I would say, in the 2000s era, there was some bad business done. There were some wrestlers that did not want to come back to the state because it just had a bad reputation, whether it was cruddy rings or maybe they weren't in there with, people who necessarily knew what they were doing. So it turned people away for quite some time. But, there's a lot of people who have worked to kind of change the perception and the reputation of Maine wrestling from the inside out. And I would say it's in a great place today, but there have definitely been times where there was a lot of contention and there was a lot of problems within the Maine wrestling community.
Just for Limitless, for me, when I look at like the wrestling landscape, I think obviously AEW has been a significant disruptor, as well as like COVID. And I think with AEW, it sort of, I think, ate some of the appetite for like super federations, like sort of like bringing in talent from outside and sort of gathering them together and then being able to stream that to a certain degree, as well as like COVID affecting like the live event business. Did you see any markers sort of like with AEW like affecting business one way or another? And of course, what was the impact of COVID and post-COVID?
It was interesting because I think a lot of the wrestlers that we ended up there was a swift group of wrestlers, I would say, both WWE and AEW, that were swooped up in that, we did closed tapings at that time, but in that COVID era of wrestling, where on the other side, it was just all new again. I felt like we were almost starting over in a sense because for one reason or another, a lot of wrestlers that we worked with pre-COVID were not available at that time. And granted, like you do get, you get some wind in the sails, so to speak, when you have these wrestlers who are a part of things maybe in 2018, 2019, who can come back on the flip side a couple years later. And now they're, maybe with AEW or maybe even like a TNA at that point. And that's great. You know what I mean? Because especially, the stages and the amplification of the wrestlers now to the mainstream, but also like, I felt like it kind of, it put us into a couple rebuilding stages, I would say, where, maybe guys who are on top of the card or some of the more popular wrestlers that we brought to town are just on Saturdays now they're unavailable. And I think we found out pretty quick with the formation of AEW that it was going to be a challenge to kind of work around that because the schedule just continued to pick up for them. The obligations continued to pick up for wrestlers that were working with AEW. So I think, you can look at it as that it helped and it hurt in different spots, but I think it was all part of the rebuilding process after COVID because it just, a lot of things business wise felt like a complete rebuild. And we're back in the streets putting up posters again like it was the first show because you just had to get that, kind of the brand awareness out there again that this was something, and these are, a lot of new wrestlers are going to take some bigger positions and step up to the plate. And I feel like a lot did. And I think it really helped that we had some closed taping stuff in that time because in that intermediate period, we were able to kind of figure out, okay, who are some people that we can kind of give the ball to that might be local wrestlers who may not have had that stage or that spotlight before, but now we're going to have more opportunities up there. So who's ready to step up to the plate?
So I think one of the markers, at least outside of Maine, in terms of your success, has been YouTube. Was that sort of did you study YouTube to be like, how do I market on here? Were you just naturally savvy? Were you lucky? Like, how did that take off so well?
Definitely just did a lot of like looking at who's doing this and getting great, in terms of like who's picking up subscribers, who's actually getting their YouTube channel seen. Because there are channels, I don't know, just in looking at it, like there are channels that have a ton of subscribers and no views, you know what I mean? Or I just was curious how it all worked, because I I felt like from when we first got started, there was no like Triller, there was no IWTV at that time. Like there not much for options in terms of getting your stuff out there. And granted, we were doing DVDs and like Smart Mark Video, but that was only going to go so far. And I just wanted people to see what we were doing, to be honest, because to get the awareness, especially outside of Maine, I kind of felt like we needed to make new fans and make some noise in the New England area, and maybe our cards and just the awareness that we're here would entice people. Hey, I'm going to take that drive from Connecticut or from Massachusetts to come see this show. Because we just in the first couple of years, we had a couple big swings that we were taking in terms of some bigger name talent, kind of out of our depth for a newer promotion to bring in. So if just the awareness and the footage being out there would garner some people to pay attention, or even just want to view our stuff, more so. Even to this day, like I feel like our new project is like trying to get on as much local television as possible. And we're doing like episodes of TV. We started with Portland media in the Portland area, and just have kind of grown out from there, just to try to, because at the end of the day, I just want people to see the shows. I want people to see what we're doing. And granted, we can't put everything up on YouTube for free. There's still, full shows on IWTV, and we're pumping out those television episodes. But at the end of the day, I really wanted people to see kind of what we were doing up here in Maine, and that, something that continues to change the perception a little bit. But then, we did see some growth with that very quickly, and continued to try to, and we were doing other things too to kind of supplement that at different points, where we were doing some closed taping stuff, some studio taping or whatever. And then that led to kind of having a model when COVID hit, and doing some closed taping things. But it was something that was, it was important to me, because I know that, when I was growing up and wanting to seek out wrestling, I didn't have the money to always go to that Bull Moose Music and buy those DVDs. So what I could get on YouTube was sometimes what I was watching for a long period of time. So I was always grateful for that as a kid, and I would hope that other people can seek this out and be happy with it as well.
So in looking at YouTube subscribers and views for a while, along with Limitless, Beyond, and even Ring of Honor under Sinclair, when you look at like most viewed videos, I don't know if it's still defined as such. Like intergender wrestling seemed to be like the most popular, followed by like women's wrestling. Did you like notice that? And is that still like the case today?
There was definitely a considerable takeoff point, and I would have to look back at the numbers, but I feel like it was like 2018, 2019 that some intergender videos, and just some of the videos on the channel in general, exploded. I would also loop in, and granted, not everything like meets the standards, but hardcore wrestling as well is. We've had some monster views on some, like I think there was an Ace Romero, AR Fox fans bring the weapons match that is one of the matches on par. But yes, in general, intergender women's wrestling, that stuff in other countries too. That stuff just takes off sometimes. And like I think there's one that's like 47 million views. It's like buku numbers. I'm like, wow. But yes, there was a point in time that it felt like, especially some of those videos and the channel itself kind of exploded. That was something that we kind of wanted to introduce up here anyway, and just like it was a new flavor that I was introduced to from like seeing some early CZW shows, Beyond as well. I was able to travel to some of their early shows at Fet Music, and it was just like a competitive, stylistically wise, like something that had not really been presented in Maine at that point in time, and something that I think really through the years, there are some pivotal matches in our history. MJF and Ashley Vox for the Limitless Wrestling Championship is one that sticks out. Chris Statlander has a ton in her history, one with Daniel Garcia, which was, I believe, one of her last matches for us in front of fans. But yeah, I mean, there's been some huge moments in our history with that, and I'm happy that it's, ingrained in our history a little bit, but definitely in terms of, things that are taking off on YouTube even to this day. And I do think like, it's kind of I don't know. Today it's very tough to judge YouTube. Like I have not that I've ever felt like I've got like an idea of what pops off and what doesn't, but I have no idea now like what's going to do numbers on YouTube and what's not. I think we literally posted there's a battle royal that went up recently that like popped off and is one of our most watched videos in months. When there's some bangers I would say that have been put up there, but it's something that YouTube is something that I'll continuously feed with stuff. We have a secondary YouTube as well now that kind of supplements a lot of our Let's Wrestle stuff, which is kind of our like affiliate company that we run in some smaller towns in Maine, and then it's also got some Maine wrestling classics from the past. But yeah, I mean I definitely think numbers, and you can look on there and the popular videos, the numbers speak for themselves. It's definitely gets more pop, I would say.
Does YouTube play an important part for your revenue in terms of the company? I know that people have said like, oh, it's down a lot from what it was. Like, does that allow you to say, okay, let me take some risks on outside talent, sort of like giving you like a baseline to work from?
Not particularly. Like I would say, I mean, a lot of our business comes from live gates still to this day, and merchandise. I would say that it does. I mean, there are some months where it's like, okay, maybe this could tack on like a flight or something for us for a show or something of that nature. But it's wrestling is just, and this was a change really right as we figured out, because it took. It took me a while to kind of figure out YouTube and like how this is going to work in terms of we've built an audience, and now how do we capitalize on this a little bit. But I don't remember the year, but there was definitely a change in the advertising revenue as it pertained to professional wrestling. And it definitely, from what I was told, because I was asking a lot of questions when we were kind of getting started with this to a lot of people who knew a lot more than me. And I think that really changed the landscape on what anything that's categorized as a professional wrestling page that's posting wrestling with ads on it is going to make, compared to like what a normal channel would generally make if they were getting similar or the same numbers. But it is another point of revenue, and I think that's always important to an independent company. But it's not anything life changing, but it definitely it can help kind of maybe beef up a card here or there, or for instance, this past month we were able to buy a new canvas. You know what I mean? Like it's things like that that kind of help maybe upgrades along the way. But it's a helpful tool regardless. You know what I mean? We're getting stuff out there, hopefully gaining some new fans, and then making a little bit along the way.
So in terms of your more premium events with IWTV, I believe that's a service that you've been with for a while. Why does that work for you? And like, what's your take? What do you get a sense of in terms of the state of streaming of the pro wrestling business?
I'm so curious about it right now. I feel like there's been a lot of chatter lately. IWTV's always done good by us. They helped us out a lot in terms of kind of getting our shit together when we wanted to start streaming, because it was just something that was unattainable at that time. I believe we did our first live stream at the end of 2019, and I believe we've been hosting with them since 2018. But through the pandemic, through the closed taping stuff, like they were excellent to work with. I've had no complaints with IWTV. I know everybody's got their own opinion, and I think people have different spots that work best for them. And I'm always interested in getting stuff out there to more people, like I said at the beginning. But as of now, and has been for a few years, it's been a great host for us and works for everything that we need. Great communication on our end, and I've been happy with it because it's definitely we've got especially through the closed taping and then continuing onward, just a lot of different and new people who have been able to check out Limitless Wrestling shows. But I've been happy with it. I mean, and our streams hold up very well. We don't have many interruptions on any sides of things, but been great to work with on my end. And they've got pretty much the entire Limitless library. I think minus a good chunk of the first year and a half, but a lot of stuff on there backlogged.
Would you say, like, along with Beyond, like, I would say like Limitless is probably the anchor of IWTV with Beyond. Do you think that's fair?
I think so many people are watching so many different things, like C4 on there as well. I think have a great contingent of Canadian wrestling fans, and there's a lot of fun stuff on there. But yeah, I mean, Beyond, they're doing a ton of shows right now. I know they do a weekly wrestling open one on there, but yeah, I mean, dude, it's such a great time because there's so many places where you can access wrestling. I mean, it's crazy right now. So there's a lot of good options out there for people, but. Yeah, I mean, we're stoked to have some good company on there.
So I'm so glad that previously you mentioned over-the-air television in terms of a form of distribution or syndication. When did you get inspired to pursue that? How's that going? Like, what do you hope for?
It's cool, man. Like I mean, that was kind of my introduction to some local wrestling too, because when I was just trying to figure out how to watch anything, the Savoldis had NWA on Fire, which was a weekly, I think it was noontime on Saturdays. They would have their program, and then soon after that, I think in 2009, IWE actually had a program that would air the hour after it. So you had 2 hours of wrestling Saturday from 12 to 2 on your local Fox affiliate in Bangor, Maine. But I don't know. I honestly, like a couple of years ago, I was getting something done with my car at a garage. They had local access on it. I'm like, why wouldn't we just get something together that we could submit? You know what I mean? Because if some of this stuff is on local access, I think we can get wrestling on there. So we got to connect with the Portland Media Center, PMC Channel 5 in Portland. We've been doing, I think it's about 2 years now. I think it was 2 years in September that we've been doing episodes with them. And really it branched out from there. It's just kind of talking to people and finding the right connect point. But I believe we have 6 stations now that we're on through New England, and then one in Wisconsin as well, and hopefully adding a 7th next week. But just to get it out there and get people to see this stuff, because I really believe in the wrestlers that we've got, the product that we've been putting together, especially the past year and a half or so. It's been there's a lot of fun stuff, you know what I mean, and a lot of stuff that I'd love more people to see. So somewhere along the way, we're gonna catch that random fan who's gonna peep that and be like, wow, I need to get in tune with this company or check it out or see what they're doing, and it starts from there.
I love it. Randy, your consumption of wrestling, may have been started differently than John and I, but it really crosses over, especially the local television. I used to get the local TV guide, and the first thing that I would do was go through every line and be like, okay, where's the random wrestling?
Exactly. Yes.
And when you find something at 2 a.m, it's like, oh yeah, it's like the best feeling. I'm in New York, so Wild Side was on for like 3 weeks in New York, while the station was like transitioning from like one to another, and they had to like fill it with something. So I think they put on like what was it, America One or something like that, and that was just the best, like AJ Styles, a young AJ Styles.
That's incredible. I used to have this station. I remember the number was 9417. It was the Colors Network. That was I believe it was, I don't even know where it would have originated from, but it ended up getting the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Or I don't know if it was named that at the time. I believe it was an NWA affiliate at the time, but they would air the program that had like the young bucks, Brent Albright and Adam Pearce feuding for the title. Then you'd get a random like cut from their Texas taping with like Cade and Murdoch at that time. I was the same way. I would like term search wrestling and try to find anything I could.
Nice. I remember reading about that in the newsletters, that it was on like the Dish Network, whatever station. Actually, if you're interested in syndication, you should definitely connect with Dave Marquez if you haven't yet. He's still doing it with the syndicated wrestling. So that might be a way to continue to get out there. So I'm so glad you had mentioned Beyond before, because to me, like, being a couple steps removed, not someone that has a chance to watch all wrestling and everything on a day-to-day basis, like Beyond and Limitless sort of like exist in similar worlds in my mind. You could probably give me 100 reasons why everything is different in different markets and so on. But like, do you look to Beyond in terms of like lessons and like just strategy and so on?
Certainly. I talked with Drew a lot the first couple years. We would work together sometimes on, bringing talent in for maybe a weekend loop. And it was, very beneficial, just information and advice when we were first starting to just kind of navigate and figure it all out, because it's a crazy world to be a part of still to this day. And I think it's really cool what they're doing. They're pulling off weekly events now in Worcester, and they've got a school going. And I mean, there's a lot that we were able to just learn, and seeing those shows firsthand too, when they first kind of moved to a bigger venue and Fet Music, and got the momentum rolling there. I mean, there was a lot to learn from a lot of shows at that time in the Northeast. But I think especially in my time coming up in the Northeast independents, like they were one of the ones at that point. It was them. It was XWA was kind of popping off at that time in New England. Northeast Wrestling was running these like super shows, and then occasionally you'd get like a CZW coming to like Rhode Island or whatever. But I mean, they were like the super indie in the Northeast in that stretch of time, and there's a lot to learn from those those shows, the events, and kind of how they did things.
So we can't talk about Maine wrestling without Tony Atlas. So when did you come across the man, the legend?
Man, I just saw Tony on Saturday. It was hilarious. I had just picked up our producer in Portland, and I rolled into our parking lot at the Yarmouth venue that we run, and I see this car pull up, and I just kind of shot it a wave. I thought they were driving out, and put the window down. It's Tony Atlas picking up his boots. I was like, "What are you doing here?" Our ring rental cousin Larry had a new set of boots for Tony. Dude, Tony, I don't remember. But my first, I definitely met him a few times before this, but my first interaction, like in the business, was the first show that I ever ring announced. Tony was a part of, so I've known him probably since I was, I don't know, 14 or 15 years old. Some incredible stuff you see with Tony throughout the years. I unfortunately watched a young man think that it was appropriate to spit at Tony very early on in his career, and learned a lesson that day. But Tony's been gold, man. My first time ever, like Tony. Funny story, like Tony has only ever known me as a ring announcer, or maybe like person who just comes and sets up the camera. We had never actually worked together on on a Limitless Wrestling kind of event level until that show at the Coliseum in August. And I didn't even have his number at that time. I'd probably been on 75 to 100 shows with him through the years, but I literally contacted our ring rental cousin Larry, who kind of books out Tony for different stuff, and set it up through him. And Tony and I never interacted until about 4 o'clock that afternoon. He says, "Kid, I never knew you were a promoter." And he's excellent. He's still wrestling to this day, which I think is kind of crazy. But dude, he's in fantastic shape. Still out there on the main independents, and has been great to most everybody that he's been around in his time.
Depending on when he shaved during the week, like between 1991 and now, he basically looks exactly the same.
Oh my God, yeah. If he doesn't have the facial hair, it's not too much of a difference. Like the pythons are still the same. When he pops them out, man, he's looking thick.
So have you looked to take out Limitless like out of state? Like, there's all these like conventions and gatherings and pre-WrestleMania and all that sort of stuff, or is that not like in your targets?
I think anytime that the situation is right, I would love to do it. I mean, our goal from day one was to really elevate and bring some of the best professional wrestling we can to the state of Maine. And I feel like we've done a solid job through the years, and are going to continue to moving forward. But we've had a couple scenarios through the years where it has made sense, and it was a good situation there. We were able to go have some fun with Blitzkrieg Pro in Enfield, Connecticut, a couple times through the years for like a kind of a head-to-head event. We were able to be a part of Restival with Beyond Wrestling, ICW, Blitzkrieg, a few others, Grind as well. That was a lot of fun. We did not participate on the last one, but maybe something to do in the future. But I'm always, there's prospects always. Like I've always kind of looked to like the Boston area as something that I would love to accomplish at some time. We have a lot of ties there with some of the guys that we've continuously used through the years, like an Alec Price and a Channing Thomas. So especially before they get gobbled up and signed to a big contract, I'd love to do something in that market. But I don't have anything set in stone, and with any time, I think the situation would have to be right. But I would definitely love to try it. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but we've got a couple big things lined up in the state of Maine for later this year in the first quarter of 2025 that I'm excited about, and a lot of our efforts always going to go into that. But I would never say never in terms of maybe something out of market, Massachusetts-wise.
Yeah. You don't have to name any names, but being very visible, have there ever been like any offers or opportunities like that seemed so far afield that I was just like, whoa, where did this come from? Like a promoter in Dubai being like, we'll fly you out, we promise you this and that. Like any of those fun stories.
I would say, I mean, there's nothing super crazy. There have definitely been people who have wanted to, either like, buy in or buy a quadrant of something, but nothing crazy in terms of people flying anybody anywhere. But I think one of the cooler ones is that we were able to there was this wrestling fan who was taking their a trip that they had saved up for so long to like Boston from Thailand, and they were able to actually catch one of our events on their way through just because their flight was delayed. They found out Brian Cage was wrestling in Maine, and they took the trip up. And that's maybe a cool experience that they can live with for quite some time. But I don't know. I just nothing screams to me on that front. I always like the cool ones to me are when we have wrestling fans from different parts of the country or different parts of the world, maybe, who are able to come see what we're doing for a minute.
So, as you know, this is the business of the business. So we kind of get bold here, in terms of numbers, and obviously it's up to you, Randy. But the Coliseum show, what was the final attendance? I'd seen people posting over 1,000, up to somebody saying 1,300. So what were the numbers there?
So when we got it back from the Coliseum, it was 1,254 in terms of tickets sold. We estimated that it was around 1,380 that were tickets distributed total. So I did not have a definitive number of what was in the room that night, but 1,254 in terms of what was sold, and then an estimated about 1,380 that were distributed total.
Nice. All in all, a financial success?
Definitely. More so than honestly we thought it was going to be. Obviously, like something to this extent, we put the most money into an event like this than we ever have. But I think it paid off on the other side, and I think it's going to pay off in terms of what we can do big event wise moving forward as well, because it opened a lot of doors for us, and also I think kept the door open at the Coliseum, which was a fantastic host for that. The venue looked incredible on film, and in person, I think it was very comfortable for people too. And that was my hope when, making the jump from, we're typically running, a 400 cap AmVets Hall in Yarmouth, or a 350 cap like wedding venue in Herman. So to take the jump to something that was set for about 1,600, and just setting it up right, making it comfortable, making sure there's not lights in anybody's eyes. It's all things that we hadn't really dealt with on a grand scale. We had done one arena event to this point, and it was a much smaller scale in terms of what we had going into it. And this, there was a crazy amount going into this one in terms of just things that we had to make sure went right, and just have the proper staffing, have the proper people to be able to pull this off and make it look good and make it look right. But I'm very happy with everything at the end of the day. I mean, not everything's going to go 100% right, but this one, more often than not, it went flawless in terms of the actual execution and the team being on the ball, and really proud of everybody who was involved in that one. But very happy with it all around, and I think it's going to do well for us when we hit it a second time in terms of an arena event or a bigger style event that we had this experience, because it had been about 5 years since we had taken that jump.
So it was interesting because I had in my Google searches, I kept looking, up the venue and so on. So then Google started feeding me information about the venue, and in between your announcement and the show, I'm suddenly seeing that the venue is for sale. So has that news reached you, and has that affected any of the staff there yet, or everything just kind of stays as is until there's any news?
Everything kind of stays as is right now. I think I don't believe this is the first time recently that it has been listed on the market. So I don't think it was a shock to anybody with the Colisee team. It was something that I had been briefed on ahead of time as well. It's just hey, don't, it's not gonna impede anything anytime soon. But it's something to keep an eye on, because this was a great fit for what we were trying to do, and I think it's going to be a great fit for some things in the future. So. We're definitely hoping that door stays open, but in the in the time moving forward, I would say it's probably nothing to worry about, because I think something like that's going to take a lot of time, even if it started processing today. You know what I mean? That something went down, but definitely something we're keeping an eye on. But as we know it, all systems go right now moving forward for the time being with the Colisee.
Are you thinking about putting a hold on the building, for the future soon?
I definitely think that we've said it a couple times. We are going to look into the Vacation Land Cup next year for another arena-like event. And I think the Colisee was a great fit. We obviously wanted to get our feedback from, people who were actually going to this show and there in person, and how they enjoyed it. And if there was anything that, we could improve upon, or any, just any hardships with the venue. And it's been, I would say, mostly positive all around. So, it is something that we're going to explore, and probably in the first quarter of next year, we'll probably get something set in stone that we could announce.
So Michael helped to educate me about, the different parts of Maine, because my knowledge is just going to Cape Cod. As a kid, I'm like, it's all vacation. So, I was thinking that there would be an opportunity maybe where, since you have fans from all over, that a certain percentage, you can promote it sort of as this weekend event or this overnight event where come experience Limitless for the first time and so on. But from what I understand, that particular area isn't particularly for tourists, but maybe depending on the venue and so on, that could be incorporated.
Yes. So I think Lewiston definitely has a reputation around here. Not everybody loves it, but I would say my time in Lewiston, at least, and I was there a lot. We flyered the area a couple times. We were down there for a few meetings. I had a great time throughout my stint in Lewiston. I understand that it doesn't have the best sparkling reputation around here, but historic sports history and a beautiful venue. I would say that not too far off the highway, not off the beaten path. It's about 30 minutes from Portland as well. So that's actually one of the times I went down there. I ended up doing a meeting in Portland as well. Stayed in Portland, and it's 35 minutes away. So there's a lot around the Lewiston area, and around, even where we're running in Yarmouth as well. It's about 12-15 minutes from Portland, depending on what part, which is kind of the metropolis of the southern Maine area. I feel like if you're either probably going to go to the coast, or you're going to go Portland, South Portland, to the mall area. But there's a ton to do in Lewiston. I don't think it's a terribly bad area. It definitely has a reputation, but I definitely think it's worth the trip to experience Maine as well. And the summertime is the best time to do it.
Cool. Let me turn over to John.
Where can everybody find Limitless, whether it be YouTube, social media, etc.?
Yeah, so limitlesswrestling.com is going to be an avenue to everywhere you want to go, but we're on YouTube, youtube.com/limitlesswrestling. You can find us on Facebook, very active on there as well, facebook.com/limitlesswrestling, at LW Maine on Twitter, at Limitless Wrestling on Instagram and TikTok, and then really anything that you want to know as well. Throughout the website, we have the podcast as well, the Limitless Wrestling podcast that we're doing about every couple weeks, and just putting info out there in terms of what's coming up on events, and what's coming up generally in the world of Limitless Wrestling. But that's really it, guys. I appreciate the time and the platform today. I love what you guys are doing, and I appreciate you guys having me.
Awesome. Randy, thank you so much for all the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Absolutely.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you, Randy. All right, Lavie, let's wrap this bad boy up and head towards the plugs. You follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Where can everybody find and follow you, Lavie?
So, John, we're 3 away from 100 members of the LinkedIn group, The Business of the Business. So come aboard, rate and review us, especially on Apple, the podcast. We're 1 away from 10 on there. Check out my long-form articles on linecupjobsearch.com and on X, Lavie Marg, Lavie
Thank you, Lavie. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, everybody out there for listening. See you right back here and next week for another Business of the Business. See you next week, folks.